Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be diving deep into anti-fragility.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's from this book by Nassim Nicholas Taleb.
I love Taleb.
Yeah, it's called Antifragile, Things That Gain from Disorder.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about how some things actually benefit from, like, chaos and uncertainty.
That's so counterintuitive.
I know, right? It's like the opposite of what we're taught.
Yeah, exactly. Like our whole lives we're told to avoid risk, avoid failure, play it safe.
Right.
But Taleb's like, nah, man. Sometimes you gotta embrace the chaos.
Yeah, like, how do we actually make ourselves stronger by, like, leaning into the stuff that makes us uncomfortable?
Totally. And I
Yeah.
think the first thing we gotta do is like redefine how we think about fragility.
Okay, so, like, what do we usually think of when we hear that word fragile?
I mean, like, I think of something delicate, something that breaks easily. Right?
Yeah, like a china teacup or something.
Exactly. Like one little bump and it's shattered.
But Taleb wants us to consider something else,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he wants us to think about things that don't just withstand stress, but actually get stronger because of it.
Okay, so it's not just about bouncing back, like resilience.
Exactly. Resilience is about withstanding shocks and staying the same.
Right.
Antifragility is about using those shocks to like level up, to become even better.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but, like, how does that actually work? What does an anti-fragile system, like, look like in real life?
Well, Taleb uses this really interesting example from ancient Greece.
Oh, tell me more.
Okay, so have you ever heard of the philosopher Thales?
Vaguely, wasn't he, like, one of the pre-Socratics?
Yes. And Taleb tells the story about how Thales used his knowledge of nature, like, to his advantage.
Okay.
So he knew a bumper olive crop was coming, right? So he prepaid for the use of all the olive presses in the area.
Oh, wow. He was, like, cornering the market?
Yeah, kind of. And then
Huh.
when the harvest came in, everybody needed those presses.
And Thales was like, I gotcha.
Exactly. He had created this, like, option for himself, and he profited immensely.
So instead of trying to predict the exact outcome, he set himself up to benefit no matter what happened.
Boom. That's the key. He had limited downside, like the cost of renting the presses, but potentially unlimited upside.
So smart.
This illustrates the power of what Taleb calls optionality.
Optionality.
Yeah, limiting your downside while maximizing your potential gains. And it's something you can totally apply to your own life.
Give me an example.
Okay, so instead of always trying to predict the perfect path, consider like identifying areas where you can create limited downside and potentially large upside.
That's a really powerful idea.
Right.
But it also makes me think about how much we rely on predictions in our daily lives. Like, we try to predict everything from the weather to the stock market.
Oh, totally.
Is Taleb saying we should just, like, abandon predictions altogether?
I mean, he's definitely critical of our over-reliance on predictions, especially in complex systems like the economy,
Yeah.
His argument is that you can't possibly account for every variable, every unexpected shock.
He even calls those unforeseen events black swan events.
Yes, exactly. So instead of trying to predict the unpredictable, we should focus on building systems, both in our lives and in the world around us, that can handle being wrong.
So it's about building in a margin of safety.
Yeah, more than that. It's about designing systems that not only withstand shocks, but actually benefit from them.
I like that.
Think of it like building a house in an earthquake zone, right?
Okay.
You wouldn't just want a house that doesn't collapse. You'd want one that actually gets stronger with each tremor.
Okay, that's a powerful analogy. So how do we design those kinds of systems? How do we cultivate that anti-fragility?
Well, one key concept that Taleb introduces is the Lindy effect.
Okay, the Lindy effect, what's that?
He observed that things that have survived for a long time are more likely to continue surviving.
Oh, that makes sense.
Like essentially, the older something is, the more likely it is to stick around.
So things that have stood the test of time have, like, a kind of built-in anti-fragility.
Yeah. Exactly. Think about the tools, technologies, or even like life philosophies you rely on. Which ones have stood the test of time?
That's a good question.
The Lindy effect suggests there's wisdom embedded in things that have survived for a long time.
Like, they've been stress tested, they've adapted, they've proven their resilience.
Totally.
So we should be wary of the shiny new object syndrome and maybe give a little more respect to the things that have been around for a while.
It's not about rejecting all things new, right?
Yeah.
It's about finding a balance.
Okay.
Recognizing that new things haven't been through that same rigorous testing as the old.
Yeah, they might be fragile. They might have, like, hidden weaknesses.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. And how does this connect back to the idea of anti-fragility in our own lives?
Well, it encourages us to think about how we build robustness and adaptability into our own lives.
Okay.
What practices, what habits, what mindsets can we adopt that have stood the test of time? What can we learn from traditions and systems that have proven their ability to withstand and even benefit from challenges?
It sounds like we need to shift our thinking from trying to avoid risk and uncertainty to embracing it, at least to some degree.
Yeah, definitely.
But isn't there a danger in that? What about the importance of accountability and making sure people are responsible for their decisions?
That's where another crucial concept comes in:
Okay.
skin in the game.
Skin in the game. Okay.
Taleb argues that those who make decisions should have something to lose if they're wrong.
That makes sense.
It's about aligning incentives, making sure that those in power are also exposed to the potential downside of their actions.
Okay, I understand the importance of accountability, but isn't there a danger in making the potential downside so great that people are afraid to take any risks at all?
Oh, for sure.
Like, we don't want to create a system where people are too afraid to innovate or try new things because the potential consequences are so severe.
Yeah, it's a valid point.
What's the balance?
It's about finding the right balance. We need systems that encourage responsible risk-taking, where people are motivated to think carefully about the potential consequences of their actions,
Right.
but also where failure isn't punished so severely that it stifles innovation and progress.
That makes sense.
Finding that sweet spot is key.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the challenge.
Well, on that note,
Yeah.
we'll take a quick break and we'll be back to talk more about anti-fragility in our own lives and how we can use these concepts to make ourselves stronger and more adaptable.
Sounds good. I'm ready for it.
Awesome, me too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about like systems and structures,
Yeah.
but how does this idea of anti-fragility apply to us as individuals? Like, can we actually make ourselves more anti-fragile?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, our own bodies are a prime example of anti-fragility in action.
Really?
Yeah, think about it, like how your muscles get stronger when you lift weights. They're
Oh,
actually causing tiny tears in the muscle fibers,
no.
but then your body repairs them and makes the muscles stronger, preparing them for future stress.
So what doesn't kill us really does make us stronger.
In a way, yes, Taleb calls this concept hormesis.
A mimesis, okay.
Yeah, it's the idea that a small amount of stress can actually be beneficial.
Interesting.
And it's not just about muscles either. Think about your immune system.
Okay.
When you're exposed to a virus, your body learns to fight it off, building up immunity.
Right.
Each challenge, makes the system more resilient to future threats.
So by exposing ourselves to small amounts of stress, we're actually training ourselves to become more adaptable and resilient.
Precisely, but this isn't about, recklessly putting yourself in danger.
Right, of course.
It's about finding those challenges that push you just outside your comfort zone,
Okay.
those experiences that help you grow and develop.
I like that. So are there any other real-world examples of anti-fragility that we can learn from?
Oh, yeah, tons. Taleb uses this really interesting example, the restaurant industry.
Okay, restaurants. How are restaurants anti-fragile?
Well, on the surface, you might think restaurants are incredibly fragile.
Yeah, for sure.
They can go out of business for all sorts of reasons. Bad reviews, changing tastes, increased competition.
Right, so how is that industry anti-fragile?
Well, that constant churn, the failure of some restaurants, actually makes the overall restaurant scene more robust and innovative.
Oh, I see.
The weak ones close, and the ones that survive, they've adapted and learned from those failures.
So it's like a natural selection process for restaurants.
Yeah, exactly.
The fittest survive and thrive, and the industry as a whole benefits from that constant evolution.
Exactly. And those failures create space for new, potentially even better restaurants to emerge.
That's cool.
It's a system that embraces failure as a necessary part of growth and progress.
And when you think about it, that's similar to how evolution works in nature.
Absolutely. Species evolve and adapt through random variations and natural selection,
Right.
environmental pressures. Those stressors are what drive the process.
It's like survival of the fittest.
Yeah, the fittest survive and pass on their genes, making the species as a whole stronger and more adaptable.
So nature itself is a testament to the power of anti-fragility.
In a way, yes, it's constantly experimenting, constantly testing different variations to see what works best.
Wow.
And it's that ability to adapt and evolve that has allowed life on Earth to thrive for billions of years through all sorts of challenges and upheavals.
That's incredible. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about anti-fragility and systems in our own bodies, even in nature. But how can we bring this all together? What are some practical things that we can do to cultivate anti-fragility in our own lives?
That's the key question, isn't it? It's about shifting our mindset from trying to predict and control everything to embracing uncertainty and learning to adapt.
Okay, I like that.
One of the first things we can do is to question our reliance on predictions.
You mean like trying to predict the stock market or which way the political winds are blowing?
Exactly. Those things are often beyond our control.
Sure.
Instead of wasting energy trying to predict the unpredictable, focus on what you can control, your own actions and reactions.
So it's about building that inner resilience, that ability to roll with the punches.
Yes. And it's also about embracing a certain level of randomness.
Randomness.
Yeah, don't be afraid to experiment, to try new things, even if you don't know exactly what the outcome will be.
Okay.
Those experiences, even the ones that don't go as planned, can teach you valuable lessons and help you grow.
So instead of sticking to the same routine and trying to avoid any surprises, we should actively seek out new experiences and challenges.
Within reason, of course.
Right, right.
It's not about being reckless. It's about finding a balance between pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and managing risk responsibly.
I see.
Think about the concept of optionality we discussed earlier.
Okay, yeah.
How can you create scenarios in your own life where you have limited downside and potentially significant upside?
That's a great question. It could be anything from starting that side hustle you've been thinking about to taking a class in a completely new subject to even just changing up your daily routine.
Exactly, and those small experiments, those deviations from the norm can often lead to unexpected opportunities and insights.
That's cool.
They can help you discover hidden strengths and passions you never knew you had.
So it's about embracing those what-if moments
Yeah.
and seeing where they lead.
Yes. And it's also about learning to value failure as a necessary part of the process.
Failure.
Yeah, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Embrace them as opportunities to learn and grow.
I guess that's how we get better.
Exactly, it's all part of the journey.
It sounds like building anti-fragility is a lifelong journey, a constant process of adapting and evolving.
It is, and it's a journey worth taking because in a world that's increasingly complex and unpredictable, the ability to thrive in the face of change, to not just withstand shocks, but to actually benefit from them, is more valuable than ever.
So much of what we've talked about just seems to challenge the way we normally think about risk and failures. It's like we're being encouraged to embrace the things we usually try to avoid.
It is a shift in perspective for sure. We're so conditioned to think in terms of minimizing risk, optimizing for efficiency, predicting outcomes.
Right.
But those approaches can actually make us more fragile in the long run.
Because they make us less adaptable.
Exactly. When we try to control every variable, when we shy away from any possibility of failure,
Yeah.
we become brittle. We lose that ability to flex and bend when the unexpected inevitably happens.
And it always happens.
Oh, yeah, always.
So how do we break free from that mindset? How do we start building in that flexibility, that anti-fragility?
Well, one practical step is to think about redundancy.
Redundancy, okay.
In engineering, they build redundant systems into airplanes and other critical infrastructure.
Right.
If one part fails, there's a backup ready to take over. That's what makes them so safe.
So it's like having a safety net, but for your entire life.
Precisely, it's about identifying those potential points of failure in your life and creating backup systems.
Oh.
It doesn't mean you need to become a doomsday prepper or live in a constant state of paranoia. It's about making smart choices that reduce your vulnerability.
So can you give us some examples?
Sure, think about your finances. Having an emergency fund is a classic example of redundancy.
Okay, yeah.
If you lose your job or face an unexpected expense, you have a cushion to fall back on.
That makes sense. What about other areas of life?
Diversifying your income streams is another good one.
Okay.
If you're reliant on a single source of income, you're more vulnerable to economic shocks.
Right.
Exploring side hustles, freelancing, or invading can create more stability.
So it's about spreading the risk, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And it goes beyond finances. Think about your relationships. Having a strong support network of friends and family is crucial.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They can provide emotional support, practical help, and different perspectives when you need them most.
That's so important. It sounds like building anti-fragility is about creating a web of interconnected systems, both internal and external, that can support us through challenges.
That's a great way to put it. It's about cultivating resilience on multiple levels, so that when one area is strained, the others can compensate.
Okay.
Remember, it's not about eliminating risk entirely. It's about managing it intelligently, even embracing it as a catalyst for growth.
I like that. So as we wrap up our deep dive into anti-fragility,
Yeah.
I'm left with this kind of lingering question.
Okay.
How can we apply these principles not just to our personal lives, but to the larger systems around us?
Yeah.
Can we make our communities, our institutions, even our society as a whole, more anti-fragile?
That's the challenge, isn't it? It requires a shift in thinking, a move away from top-down control and prediction towards more decentralized, adaptable systems.
Yeah,
It means embracing experimentation, learning from failure, and building in redundancy at every level.
it sounds like a tall order.
It is, but the potential rewards are enormous. Imagine a world where our systems are designed to not just withstand shocks,
Right.
but to actually learn and grow from them. A world where we embrace uncertainty, not as something to fear, but as an opportunity for innovation and progress.
That's a vision worth striving for. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of anti-fragility. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey and for sharing your insights.
It's been my pleasure, and remember, the world is full of unexpected challenges and opportunities. The key is to be prepared to be adaptable and to embrace the unknown with courage and curiosity.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We hope this deep dive has inspired you to explore these ideas further and to consider how you can cultivate anti-fragility in your own life and in the world around you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.